She lay half buried beneath the broken wall of a Fallujah alley, her breath thin as dust, her blood seeping into the shattered concrete beneath her. 11 rounds had torn through her body, ribs, shoulder, thigh, side, yet she refused to close her eyes. Every blink felt like a negotiation with death, and she wasn't ready to surrender. Not here, not in this place where the air tasted of metal, gunpowder, and betrayal. The city around her trembled with distant firefights, but she heard none of it clearly anymore, only the slowing drum of her own heartbeat, stubborn and staggering, as though each beat had to claw its way through pain before it could echo in her chest. She had been separated from her unit during the ambush, dragged across debris by sheer instinct until the world tilted and swallowed her in darkness. She woke to the stench of burning tires, to the sting of smoke carving its way through her throat, to the realization that 2 days had passed and her radio had long gone silent. Yet she was still breathing. Her name was Corporal Lacey Ward, an infantry medic who had volunteered for every frontline deployment despite the quiet fear her commanders carried for her. She wasn't reckless, just unshakably committed. It was the children she had treated in villages, the families she had pulled from rubble, the way people looked at her with a mixture of disbelief and gratitude that pushed her forward. Even now, through the haze of agony, she clung not to survival but to purpose. Someone had to make it home and tell the truth about what happened here. Someone had to make this suffering mean something. The alley was silent, except for the unsettled tremor of distant conflict. The enemy had searched the area the night before, their boots crunching inches from her face as she lay motionless beneath the fallen stones. She had felt their shadows slide across her, felt her pulse leap, felt the metallic burn of fear spread through her like another wound. But they had left her. They thought she was dead, a bitter kind of victory. Now, as dawn spilled across the ruins, she tried again to move her fingers. They obeyed in small, trembling arcs. Her body protested with a surge of pain so sharp it felt like her bones were filled with broken glass. But even pain was proof that she was here, still carved into the earth, still resisting the silence that wanted to swallow her. Far off beyond the shattered rooftops, she sensed a shift in the rhythm of the city. A vehicle, heavy, controlled, not the erratic rattle of insurgent trucks, but something disciplined, calculated. She couldn't see it, but her mind recognized the sound the way a drowning person recognizes the distant hum of a lifeboat. Someone was coming. Her vision flickered, swallowing color into gray, but she forced herself awake. If help arrived and she wasn't conscious, she would vanish into the long list of unclaimed casualties. No name, no story, just another ghost in a war full of them. She swallowed, tasting dust and copper. Her lips cracked beneath the faintest movement. She tried to speak, to call out, but the sound died before it could escape her throat. All she had left was the stubborn rise of her chest, shallow but persistent. In the growing light, her mind drifted to the moment she had fallen. The ambush, the sudden bloom of gunfire ripping the morning apart, the frantic cries of her team. She remembered the boy who had stepped into the street, no older than 14, rifle shaking in his hands. She remembered her own whisper of warning before the world erupted. She had shielded another soldier with her body, absorbing the bullets meant for him. A choice made in less than a heartbeat, a choice that now felt like the thin thread keeping her alive. Across the city, that heavy vehicle stopped. Boots hit the ground, controlled, synchronized, the kind of steps that belong to men trained to walk through chaos without losing their shadows. The SEALs had arrived, and though she didn't know it yet, they were about to discover something no one expected. A soldier who should have died 2 days ago, still holding onto life with a ferocity that defied every rule of war. The footsteps grew closer, echoing through the hollow streets, and Lacey felt a jolt of clarity amidst the haze of pain. Her mind sharpened, each sensation amplified the grit of sand beneath her fingers, the sting of blood drying on her skin, the faint rhythm of her own heartbeat hammering against her ribs. She realized, with a mixture of fear and relief, that someone had not only found her, they were trained to find the impossible. First SEAL emerged from the shadows of the crumbled building, scanning, alert, unblinking. His eyes, sharp and unyielding, carried the weight of countless missions, each one a silent testament to survival. He paused, sensing a disturbance in the familiar cadence of the war-worn street, and then he saw her. A body pressed against broken masonry, barely moving, the kind of sight that normally brought immediate despair, but something in her posture, fragile yet unbroken, made him hesitate. She was breathing, against every odds, against every expectation. The SEAL crouched, careful, methodical. His hands were steady, but inside, a surge of disbelief roared. In the middle of a city that had swallowed so many, here was life clinging with unshakable stubbornness. "Stay with me," he murmured, though she could not hear. The words were for himself, a silent vow that she would not be left to the mercy of silence. He assessed her injuries, the deep punctures across her torso, the bruising and swelling, the blood that had begun to crust and dry. He recognized each wound immediately, knew the chances, and yet the thought of leaving her behind never crossed his mind. Her eyelids flickered, shadows of awareness breaking through. Pain carved lines across her face, but her eyes, those hazel eyes that had witnessed so much, opened. For a fleeting instant, they locked onto his, and she registered a single truth. She was not abandoned. Not yet. He worked quickly, checking for the smallest signs of movement, the faintest breath, the whisper of circulation in limbs that had long been numb. Each assessment was a battle between urgency and caution. One wrong move, and the thread keeping her alive could snap. As he lifted her gently, her body sagged, a puppet of agony and exhaustion. He gritted his teeth and pulled her free from the rubble, each step a careful choreography, each breath a negotiation with her fragile frame. She felt the world tilt again, but this time in the arms of someone who would not let go. Pain surged, and she hissed softly, the sound barely audible over the chaos of the city. But the SEAL did not flinch. He whispered encouragements, soft and unassuming, as if speaking directly into the space where her will fought to survive. In her fragmented thoughts, memories bled forward, the desert heat, the shriek of mortar fire, the terrified faces of civilians caught in crossfire, the fleeting warmth of camaraderie she had taken for granted. She remembered the soldier she had shielded, the choice that had saved him while putting her own life at risk. And now, 2 days later, she realized that choice had not been in vain. They moved through the streets cautiously, every shadow, every corner a potential threat. Yet each step forward was a testament to human resilience. Lacey, despite her body screaming in protest, felt a fragile hope seep into her consciousness, a hope she hadn't allowed herself in 48 hours. The SEAL team advanced with precision, their training turning fear into a silent rhythm of protection. And through it all, she remained alive, tethered to a world that had almost forgotten her. As the light of the rising sun began to burn away the gray of early morning, a sense of surreal calm descended over her. She was wounded, fragile, human, but she was not yet gone. And in that quiet, fleeting moment, the war itself seemed to pause, acknowledging something extraordinary. A soldier who had faced death again and again and had refused to surrender, still breathing, still resisting, still carrying the weight of survival against all odds. The streets of Fallujah were no longer merely a battlefield. They had become a labyrinth of judgment, survival, and moral weight. As Lacey was carried, her consciousness flickered like a candle in the wind, each pulse of pain threatening to snuff it out. She was acutely aware not just of her own body, but of the enormity of the injustice surrounding her. She had seen the civilians flee, had watched insurgents take advantage of their fear, and now she herself had been left behind, abandoned by chaos and circumstance. The SEAL, who held her, moved with a silent intensity. His focus split between the precarious condition of her body and the moral responsibility that pressed upon him. He could not save everyone in Fallujah. He had learned that lesson too many times, but he could save her. And in that act, he recognized that survival was not just about staying alive. It was about asserting humanity in a place that had stripped it away. Lacey's thoughts drifted as they navigated narrow alleys and shattered streets. She remembered the first bullet tearing through her shoulder and the visceral shock that had followed, the sudden dissonance of pain and disbelief. Yet through it all, a strange clarity had settled over her, a fierce, unyielding determination not to vanish quietly, not to become another forgotten casualty of war. She had held onto life for reasons she couldn't fully articulate: duty, conscience, stubborn defiance. And now, in the arms of those who had found her, that defiance became palpable, almost tangible, like a thread pulling her back from the edge. The SEALs reached a point where the city's devastation softened into a deceptive calm. They were temporarily shielded, the distant echoes of combat reduced to a low hum. Yet the moral tension was far from over. For every soldier saved, countless others lay unclaimed, victims of circumstance, neglect, or blind chance. Each step they took carried the weight of decisions unmade, lives overlooked, and the silent question: who else could they have reached if time and war were not so cruel? Lacey's breathing grew more deliberate as she tried to process the surreal juxtaposition of agony and salvation. Her mind, sharp in its suffering, considered the notion of worth. Was her survival merely a quirk of fate, or did it signify something larger? She remembered the boy she had shielded, the team she had tried to protect, the acts of humanity amidst ruin. Perhaps survival was a responsibility, not a gift. Perhaps those who escaped death carried with them the echoes of those who did not. The SEALs moved with a slow, deliberate caution. Every doorway, every corner, every shadow held the potential for threat. And yet, despite the constant tension, a quiet reverence permeated their actions. They treated her not as an object to be transported, but as a person whose will had endured in defiance of circumstance. Each careful motion, each whispered check, each brush of cloth against her wounds became a testament to the respect life demanded, even in the heart of devastation. For Lacey, time had become both enemy and ally. She measured it in breaths, in fleeting moments where pain did not dominate, in the rare glimpses of hope that dared to bloom. Memories surfaced unbidden: the laughter of her team before the ambush, the shared camaraderie in the fleeting calm between battles, the unspoken promises of protection she had once offered others. And in the midst of trauma, she realized that she was still capable of hope. Not naive hope, not reckless hope, but a quiet, defiant hope that her story, her survival, could matter. The city seemed to lean closer, as if bearing witness, the rubble and ruin framing the fragile miracle of her endurance. She had been counted out, left for dead, and yet she had refused. 2 days of pain, isolation, and unacknowledged courage had sculpted her will into something almost mythic, a testament to human resilience in its rawest, most uncompromising form. And as the SEALs finally reached the temporary haven of their extraction point, the full weight of the moment pressed upon them all. She had survived not just bullets, but the abandonment of circumstance, the apathy of the indifferent, the relentless test of pain and solitude. And as she lay in their care, she understood the most profound truth of her ordeal. Survival was not merely a matter of luck, it was a statement. A refusal to vanish quietly, a demand to be seen, to be remembered, to matter in a world determined to ignore her. The SEALs moved her into the armored vehicle, the motion jostling her fragile body, yet every careful adjustment was a reassurance. Each hand that touched her carried an unspoken vow: "You will not die here." The hum of the engine, steady and purposeful, became a rhythm she could cling to, a heartbeat beyond her own faltering pulse. For the first time in 48 hours, she felt the possibility of safety, not abstract, not distant, but immediate, tangible. Her mind drifted back, over the sequence of horrors that had brought her here. The ambush, the flash of gunfire, the chaos and screams, the moment when life had seemed to fracture into infinite shards. She had survived the physical wounds, but more pressing were the internal scars, the knowledge that she had been left alone, the realization that war does not pause for valor or courage. And yet, in this moment, she understood something she had not realized amidst the pain. Survival was an act of quiet defiance against the indifference of the world. The SEALs, skilled and disciplined, spoke little. Words were unnecessary. Their presence was a living affirmation of humanity amidst devastation. They carried her not as a mission completed, but as a duty fulfilled, a recognition that life, even fragile and battered, demanded protection. And Lacey, despite the haze of pain and exhaustion, felt a profound gratitude that did not need speech. It was written in every careful movement, every steadying hand, every measured breath taken in her defense. She remembered the soldier she had shielded, the boy who had faltered in the street, and the countless others she had tried to protect in moments of chaos. Each life had carried its own fragile value, and now, as she lay half, conscious yet breathing, she realized that her survival connected her to them all. She was a witness, a bearer of truth, a living testament to choices made under the heaviest weight of consequence. Outside, Fallujah still roared with conflict, yet inside the vehicle, there was a strange silence heavy with reverence. The city had taken much from her, but it could not take this, the fact that she had endured, that even after being struck down, even after days of pain and isolation, she had persisted. She had refused to succumb to the darkness, and in that refusal lay the quiet power of her story. As medics began their careful work upon reaching the safety of the base, Lacey allowed herself a small, trembling exhale. Each sensation, sharp pain, warmth of blankets, the soft murmur of voices reminded her that she was alive, that she had been found when the odds were stacked against her, that even in a world where war had stripped away certainty, she could still matter. Her thoughts, though fragmented, turned inward. She had faced mortality not once, but continuously, and had been tempered by the fire of experience. She realized that her survival was not merely personal. It carried a responsibility. She would bear witness to what had happened here. She would honor those who could not survive. She would ensure that her story, a story of pain, courage, and relentless determination, would be told. In that quiet understanding, a sense of resolution settled over her. The physical wounds would heal slowly, but the triumph over abandonment, the defiance against death, and the affirmation of life would remain indelible. She had been tested in every conceivable way, and against all odds she had endured. And in the heart of Fallujah, amidst the echoes of a city broken yet breathing, a single truth emerged with crystalline clarity. She had taken 11 rounds and should have died, but she had not. Against bullets, against chaos, against the world's indifference, she had survived. She was still here, still breathing, and the story of her endurance would not be forgotten. For Lacey Ward, survival was not just existence, it was a declaration, a defiance, a testament to human courage that could withstand the most harrowing trials. And as she lay there, fragile yet alive, she knew that the world would remember that in the city of destruction, a soldier had refused to die, and in doing so, had shown the unbreakable strength of the human spirit.